Hi guys, it's Jordan from P&P Campers. I'm just going to do your handover video on your AutoTrail Cheyenne 630. So we'll start under the bonnet. Got the engine battery on the left hand side just here, brake fluid at the top just here in this reservoir attached to the servo at the back, power steering fluid sits in this reservoir at the front, engine oil goes in through this cap just here at the top. You've got the sticker on there from our garage, just proving that it's the timing belt and the date and mileage that it's got on it at the moment. Engine oil dipstick is this one just down here. Got a few fuses and relays up here and in this box just down here underneath there. Engine coolant sits in this reservoir here at the top, and you can see there the level is pretty bang on, bearing in mind it's cold. And your washer fluid in there, you can see that's full up. Everything's all at the exact right level it needs to be at. It's just had its full service. Diesel filling point, it's this one just in here. Ignition key goes in to open that one up. So that's where that is. I don't think there's anything to show you inside the passenger door, apart from the fact that you've got the nice sort of like factory style stereo system with the speakers and the doors, which don't normally come with. Not a huge amount else to show you. So we've just got a load of storage underneath here, and again, like I said, we're on the near side here, so storage all the way underneath that side settee. They've got these two vents just here to the left of the door to get in. Now the bottom one, well, they're both the fridge vents basically, but the bottom one here is what will allow you access to your flame and your burner over here on the right hand side. And the top one basically it's all just for ventilation, but if you want to double check that it's definitely lit up, you can put your hand over here over this little vent, and you'll see there's a little exhaust in there basically. So the flame is down here, exhaust comes up here, and then just comes out at the top. So if you want to double check that it's definitely lit, you can put your hand over there and just wait a second, and you'll feel some warmth coming out from there. External gas point, this one just here, and your water point, so your fresh water inlet, is this one just here. And if I just point out to you, the key for the water inlet is this one, and if you want to lock it up, you basically do what I've just done there, just turn it all the way around to the right, and then key in, turn it, key out, and then it will just spin, won't come out. So I'll leave that locked up in a moment. Just inside the door, you've got your step button, and obviously it's an electric step, so that'll come out automatically if you press the button. I'll just show you around the off side now. So the first thing you'll notice is that your gas locker hasn't got a key, like a turnbuckle key on it at all, and that's because when you close it, or once it's closed, the way to open it up is to pull on this lever here like this, just inside the driver's door. So it means that you have to have the door open, you have to have the key to be able to get into your gas locker basically. So that's that. Once you're in, you've basically got space for either two 6 kilo propanes like this, or you could even fit two 13 kilo propanes in here. They're made for the much bigger bottles if you want them. You can probably see the outline of the slightly bigger bottles at some point. But at the minute you've just got this 6 kilo, which will last you a hell of a long time. You'd be surprised how long they actually last. Turning it on anti-clockwise round to the left, turning it off clockwise round to the right. I'll leave it on for a minute because I've got a few bits on in the van at the moment. What have we got down here? Not much. So you've got your hookup inlet just here. So if you wanted to sort of start using all of your 240 volt sockets inside, so your 3-pin sockets, or anything that works on 240 volt, which I'll show you inside, you need to have that plugged in. It's also a good idea if you've got access to a hookup cable, and some power, it's always a good idea to actually have this plugged in at least every once in a little while, because your batteries need topping up every now and again. This vent here that says Truma on it is your boiler vent. Now there is a cover in the cupboard which I'll show you in a minute, but that's basically your vent for your hot water, your boiler. You've got a really nice Whale outdoor water system, so it's hot and cold, or hot and cold. So you can use, you got hot and cold water outside the van if you want it. Wastewater drain is this one just down here. I just thought I'd leave it shut so I can show you it opening up. So that's how you use that. And then the last thing really is your toilet cassette. So it's your Thetford cassette. So lift up on the bottom, little handle just there, and then pull it out. And basically all you need to know is you drain out from here. So you turn this handle out, then drain it out from here. And when you are draining it out, you need to hold down that little yellow button at the back. You got a freshwater flush, which is what this little pipe here is for. So you haven't got to worry about any separate pink fluid up the top or anything like that. So yeah, nice and simple. Right, so it's a nice cold day, so I thought I'd put the heating on inside the van just to warm it up before I get in. And so that I can show you it working, obviously. Right, so 1 second. So I've taken the carpets out from the wardrobe because they were in here, just so I can show you a few bits inside there in a minute. But I'll get to that in a sec. So you got a light just up here above this whole control panel, which is off this little button here. So I thought I'd switch that on just so you can see it a little bit easier. So your main control panel is this one just here, which says AutoTrail on it. You've got a main on and off switch, which will basically turn everything 12 volt on or off. Pump, auxiliary, and you don't need to worry about this button. All it does is it basically turns the power from drawing from your leisure battery to drawing from your engine battery. The only reason you'd ever really do that, I think, and don't hold me to this, but I think if you have a hookup cable plugged into the van and you press this button, it will stop charging the leisure and start charging your engine battery. So if you had a dead engine battery, you could switch them over and then charge the battery via the hookup. But I just wouldn't bother with that button at all. If you accidentally leave this on and start using all your lights and things like that, then basically you'll drain your engine battery out. You won't be able to start the van up. So it's up to you. I wouldn't bother with that one. But basically the ones that you want to have on when you come into the van is the power, pump and aux. If you're not going to be using the pump, I really wouldn't advise having it on, to be honest, because at the end of the day you may every once in a while get a little bit of a noise that the pump might run in to sort of keep the pressure up and stuff like that, and it can be a bit frustrating. But I mean, there's no leaks on this van, so it shouldn't do that really, but they just do sometimes. But yeah, so the main ones: power, pump and aux. So that'll give you access to using all your lights, anything sort of like your fan, ignition, all that sort of stuff will all sort of come to life as soon as you turn those three on. You've then got on the right hand side, if you just go up and up and up, so pump select, internal. So if you wanted to use your outside water point, then you would want to sort of use the, in fact no, that's not true, don't worry about that. I was going to say, because some of these AutoTrails have got an external pump to draw water in from outside, but this one's not got that. It's just got that point on the outside. So as long as you've got your tap, your little pump switch on here, that external water point will work. So ignore me on that one. So you want to leave the pump switch, pump select on internal. Wastewater level is empty, and you saw that a minute ago. I drained it out and it was completely empty. Freshwater 25% full. And just so you know as well, it's always handy to keep your water level at that kind of level if you can, because you need a little bit of water in your tank to be able to flush your toilet. So try not to sort of use it all up, just so that you've got access to flushing your toilet. So you see there, the next one says vehicle battery level, so you're 12 volts on your vehicle battery, and then 11.23 on your leisure. So really 11.3, 11.4, that's okay. I would advise personally for the first, basically your first drive back home will give your leisure battery a hell of a, a charge up, because as soon as your engine battery starts charging up via your alternator, or in other words, as soon as you start the engine, the leisure battery gets charged up in turn, in line as well. So it's on a split charge relay. So basically what it means is as soon as your engine battery starts getting charged up, your leisure battery gets exactly the same. So anytime that you drive the van, you'll be charging up your leisure battery as well as your engine battery, so that when you come to using the van next, you'll have plenty of charge in the batteries, and you'll be ready to go. So yeah, I would advise, well, basically just take it out for a nice long drive and your battery will be up to scratch again. If not, I would also advise, like I would with anybody really, to have a hookup cable to hand. If you have the hookup cable into the side of the van, the sort of massive plus side is that you don't have to worry about the power of the battery at all. Whereas now, because there's nothing charging the battery at all, but we've got, the heating's on, the fan's on, the lights are on, there's quite a lot of stuff draining the battery down, but there's nothing trying to keep it back up again, if that makes sense. So basically, if you had a hookup cable into the van, you'd be at 14 volts and it wouldn't move, no matter what you put on. So I would always advise you to do that if you can, but if not, they're obviously built to do it, so it's fine. So that was that. That's all the bits through there, really. So these two switches just here are for lights. So you see you've got the ones over the top of the cupboards. So you've got basically two sort of like bluey coloured LEDs front and back, same there, and then one normal coloured one in the middle. Switch them off for now. Okay, so next thing, what should I do? Okay, well, might as well just stay up here whilst we're here. So these two here, this one on the left here, you see down here it says 230 volts, so that's basically your hookup cable, and it says ultra heat. So ultra heat, anything heating wise, is all off this little box down here. All right, so this dial here is basically how you use that heater on electric only. So no gas, this is electric only. In order to use this switch, you have to, have your hookup plugged in, but you also have to have this heater switch in the on position. So the one that says heater above it. So your hookup's plugged in, your heater switch is on. Obviously I don't have a hookup plugged in, so this won't work. But once you've done that, you can either choose 500, 1000, or 2000. That's basically just the amount of watts that it uses. Just to give you a rough idea, 500 will probably use about 2.5 amps, 1000 is 4.5, and 2000 is about 8 amps. So 2000, in my opinion, is too much. You're going to run into sort of issues where if you leave it on 2000 and put it on, and then try turning anything else 240 volt on, you'll probably trip the power because it's too much. So I would advise you to leave it on 1000 as a maximum. But basically it's really important that you leave this in the off position. But like I said, I hope that makes sense. So basically this one here, you'll notice if you put a hookup cable into the van, and don't turn this switch on, this quite literally won't even light up. It won't do anything at all, because this little switch down here that says heater on it is literally an isolator for that. So ultra heat 240 is your heating on electric. All right, so that's that. You can leave this switch on if you want to, because like I said, because all this is, it doesn't actually turn the heater on. It literally just is an isolator for this switch. So if that switch up there is in the off position, leaving this on with a hookup cable in doesn't do anything. It just sort of allows you to use that switch up there. So that's up to you. It's probably good practice to switch it off when you're not using it, just in case, but there you go. And the other one next door to that says ultra store. So ultra heat is heating, ultra store is your hot water, is your boiler. All right, so it's a little bit of a confusing layout, really. I mean, you've got heating on electric on the left, and then gas for your boiler on the right. So the first thing you have to do before you use your boiler, this is absolutely 100% necessary, before you use that, you need to have your pump switch on, and then just prove to yourself that you've got no air in the system, basically. So I'll pour the water, pump kicks in straight away, that's a good sign. No air coming out on the cold side. A little bit of air there, and then no air. All right, if the boiler was empty of water, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, if the boiler was completely empty, you wouldn't get any water coming out from the hot side at all, nothing. You absolutely, I mean you can, but you absolutely should not turn on your boiler either via the gas or the electric, which I'll show you in a minute, until you've proved that your boiler is full of water. If it's not full of water, you're basically doing the same as like boiling an empty kettle, basically. It's exactly the same as that. And to be honest, your boiler, which is the bit that sits under this little cover down here, is by far the most expensive part of this entire vehicle. So you really want to look after it. And doing what I've just done there is, you know, all you need to do. You don't have to do anything else. It's all pretty straightforward. But just prove that you've got water and it's full in the boiler before you start trying to turn it on up here. All right, that's it. So once you've done that, you literally just turn this on around here and then choose your temperature. So I'll leave it on about 55 or 60. Basically that'll just light up, and you know, after no time at all, you'll have hot water in the boiler. So it's as simple as that. All right, and then basically when it gets to that temperature, it will switch itself off, and you know, it just sort of comes in and out to keep up the temperature, basically. So ultra heat on the left, ultra store on the right, ultra heat. This one here is your heater on 240 volt, and like I said to you, it'll only work when you got this switch on here. And this one to the right, ultra store, is your hot water on gas. If you've got a hookup cable plugged in and you want to use the hot water or the heat, the boiler, sorry, on 240 volts, so on your electric only, then you just switch this button on here, and then basically that'll just start to heat your water up. So it is really probably one of the more important things I'm going to tell you. You have to make sure that you turn this one off when you're not using it. I've seen it so many times, or seen it and smelt it so many times, where people don't realise that they've got that on, plug a hookup cable into the van with no water in the boiler or whatever, and you know, accidentally basically leave that on, and what happens is a big element inside the boiler just heats, you know, really heats up, and when there's nothing in there to actually heat, it's you know, it's bad news. So you have to make sure that you leave this one off. Like I said to you, you don't have to worry so much about this one here, because all that does is sort of allow you to use that switch above the door. But this one here, if that's on and you plug a hookup into it, that's going to be on, working. So make sure that you switch it off when you're not using it. So that's your boiler on 240 volt. This bit at the back here is your power supply unit. So PSU, it's a Sergeant unit, EC200. Really nice, simple, standard units on these AutoTrails. They've pretty much all got them in. Anything this age will have one of these in it. So on the left hand side down here, DC fuses, so that's 12 volt. So basically you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it tells you exactly which one of the fuses does exactly what. And so if you did have any issues that, you know, you thought you might want to have a little look at yourself at some point, obviously if you get any problems, just come to us. But you can literally go here and see. So basically if this fan stopped working on your heater, you could have a little look. Number 4, red fan. And it tells you 10 amp red fuse. Have a little look, take it out, replace it if it needs it. So, you know, that sort of thing will happen. It's not sort of, that's the whole point in fuses. They do break. If something was to go wrong, you know, it does happen. So if you do get any issues, you can have a little look in there and double check. On the right, you've got your RCD and a couple of MCBs there. So you've also got, you know, another 3 here. So 1, 2, 3, and that's in correlation to your 3 MCBs. So like, for example, and this is all 240 volt stuff, by the way. For example, if you had a hookup plugged in and your sockets weren't working, you could check that this first one is in the up position. Or if you had a hookup plugged in and your fridge and your boiler and your charger weren't working, you could check number 3. So it's all just about, you know, having a look there and double checking if you need to. We've also got this switch just up here. You can leave that in the on position, because all that does is basically turns your charger on and off. 9 times out of 10, if you plug a hookup into the van, you're going to want the charger to be on, because, you know, if you plug a hookup in, you want it to be charging the batteries up. So you can just leave that switch on, so that when you plug it in, it will just start working. Up here, you've got your tilt and turn aerial and your TV aerial point. Not sure exactly where they're actually wired to. It must be over to here. So you've got your 12 volt 240 and your aerial point just there if you needed it. So in other words, I think they're expecting you to either have a TV here or here, but you know, of course, that's up to you. Right, so that's all the electrical bits and pieces out of the way. So this down here is your Truma Ultra Heat. It's the top spec Ultra Heat that there is. If it wasn't, you wouldn't have any of this fan, and you would also have a piezo push button ignition. So, you know, it really is top of the range one. So basically, I've got it on at the moment, and the van's already nice and warm after I put it on about 5 minutes before the video, so 25 minutes. We've got a nice warm van. You want to make sure that all of these little vents around here are not closed up like that. You want them open. And I don't know if you saw how I did that, but you literally just push to close it. All right, you want to leave those open because that's what pumps the air around. If you wanted to direct more heat to one specific area, you can isolate the other ones and it will just pump out more air elsewhere. But that's completely up to you. There is also one in the bathroom, so if you had some wet clothes or anything like that, you could hang them up in the bathroom and leave them in there to sort of heat up and dry. But that's just a little tip. Okay, so you can see in this little hole down here that you've got a flame inside there. All right, so this is us using it on gas. I've already shown you a few times how to use it on electric, so that's nice and simple above the door. But the gas is even easier, in my opinion. The only thing is you've got to sort of keep your eye on it for the first sort of 20 seconds or so. So I'm going to switch it off. And you see, I did that literally just by turning it all the way around to the left till it meets this little 0. When you turn these off, after you've had it on for this sort of amount of time, so I've had it on for, like I said, about 25 minutes or so, I would 100% advise you to leave the fan running for sort of 5 minutes or so after you've done with it. I mean, they're made to do it, so look, I'll turn the fan off now and show you. But you will not believe the amount of heat that comes out the front of this when you turn the fan off. I don't really understand. I mean, I get how it works. I mean, there's basically just a fan behind this. You see the fins in there? That's what the actual heater is itself. And you see the little sort of semicircle at the back? That's the fan. So essentially, when you've got the fan on, it just draws all the hot air out through the back and sort of evenly distributes it around through the little circular vents. But you will be shocked if you don't have this on. You'll be shocked how much heat comes out through the front of this. And I mean, I suppose it's a good thing, but it's a hell of a lot hotter than a standard, like a radiator or something, because there's no water inside this. This is literally just a gas flame and a fan. So you need to make sure that you leave that fan running for about 5 minutes or so after you've finished with it. But basically, if you want to light it up, you've got an electronic ignition on this one. So you literally just turn it around, and straight away you can hear the igniter starting. And what you want to do, I've had this on for a little while, so I'm going to have to turn it right the way up. But if you watch inside there, all I'm going to do is push this down. so it lifts straight up. And then all I need to do from there is lift this out. It'll just basically let go of it. And then from there you get the main flame kick in. And that's it, you just leave it. The only difference is, if you've just lit this up from cold, which I had to do 20 minutes ago, you do need to keep your eye on it. So what will happen is, you'll turn this around to sort of 2 or 3, push it down, and it will light up on the pilot flame. Turn it around to sort of 5 or 6, it will light up on your main flame. Sometimes, when you first light it up on the main flame, it will just die out and your igniter will start again. So if that happens, just push it back down again, wait for that pilot flame again, and just leave it on for about 10-15 seconds or so, and then lift it back out again. The main flame will kick back in again, and just keep your eye on it, make sure it stays on. Once it's stayed on for sort of like 20-30 seconds or so, you're fine, you can leave it. It'll be, it won't go out. But sometimes they do that. It's just one of the things that they do. It's not just this one, they all do it. So yeah, but I must admit, some of them do that a lot worse than others, and this one did it to me once, and then after that it was fine. So sometimes you can be sat there on some of these burners for like sort of 10-12 goes, but this one's obviously been treated well and used properly, so that's good. And then we'll switch it off like that. And then, like I said, I'm just going to leave the fan running for a minute whilst we look at a few other bits. Right, so I think this is the one that the table piece was fitted. I might be wrong, but that's there. If it is, I can't remember. We had one exactly the same as this, and we had to fit the little table pole. If it's this one, then that's that. Okay, so a couple of bits to show you. Not in there under this settee. Whoop. So if you see down there, you got the 2 little red dials up there in the corner. So the one to the left is your boiler, and the one to the right is your heater. So what they are basically just gas isolators. So if you thought there was an issue with any of your appliances and you were worried about it, or you thought something was leaking or whatever, you basically just turn those off. Just turn it 90 degrees and it'll switch the gas off to that appliance. So that's that. And you've also got this little yellow lever down here. So you see where it is in the sort of horizontal position at the moment. Sorry. That is in its closed position. So any water that goes towards the boiler will fill up the boiler at the moment. If you lift it up so it's vertical, it will just drain all of your water out. All right, so that's where that is. Basically, the reason you want to do that is if it's going to be really, really cold outside and you're not going to be using the van whatsoever, you need to drain your fresh water out from your boiler. The reason for that is, like I said to you, the boiler is the most expensive part of the van. So if you leave water in the boiler and it freezes, all the water will expand and your boiler and all the pipes around it will just be kaput, basically. So what will happen is they'll freeze inside, crack the pipes, crack all the fittings, and it's a real messy, expensive job to fix. So that's why they have that boiler drain there. If you know it's going to be getting to freezing temperatures and you're not going to be in here using it, you have to make sure that you drain that out. It's really important. So I'll just have a sip of my drink quickly, sorry. I hope this is all making sense as well. I mean, I know I'm sort of going through it quite quickly, but yeah. All right, so the fridge, unfortunately, we've kind of had to, I know it might look a little bit silly, but it's the only thing that we had that would make this work. So this is your selector on the left-hand side here. So I will get a better permanent marker, but basically you see the little mark down there by the 5. That's the bit that you need to sort of marry up with these symbols up here. So if I wanted to turn it off, I'll go right the way to the top, like that. All right, so it's nice and simple. If you have this, the van hooked up, you can just go one to the right and then use it on your electric hookup. There's basically just an element in the back of the fridge, and when you turn it over to that, if your hookup's plugged in, it basically just warms up and then in turn cools the fridge down. If your engine was running and the fridge was already cold, by the way, you can't use this to get the fridge cold on its own. The fridge already has to be cold. If your engine was running, you can turn it down to this one. And if you wanted to light it up via the gas, which is the quickest way of cooling it down really, you can go all the way to the bottom. Igniter starts clicking, and you see there the little sign in there starts flashing at you. That's the igniter. Push this little button in, it lights straight up. Hold it in for a second, let it out, and then you can turn it up. Alright, so as long as it's in this down position facing the gas symbol, the igniter should start straight away, and then push in on the little valve, that'll light up, let it out. So nice and simple on the gas. If you want to switch it all off, you haven't got to worry about anything over here if you've got it on gas. Literally just turn it off all the way up. Alright, so that's the fridge, nice and simple. Just so you know, the reason why I said that the fridge already has to be cold before you turn it over to the 12 volt is the 12 volt and the 240 work in exactly the same way, where basically it's an element in the back. It just gets its power from, you know, either obviously the 12 volt or the electric hookup. But the difference is the electric hookup one is way more powerful, and it will actually get the fridge cold on its own, whereas the 12 volt one is much smaller and much less powerful, and all it really is there for is to hold your temperature whilst you drive. So as long as you got it cold beforehand, either via the gas or the electric hookup, you can switch it over to the 12 volt when you're ready. And just so you know as well, the gas, even though it's the quickest one, will still take sort of 3-4 hours with, you know, with stuff in it, that is, to actually get cold. So, you know, don't expect it to sort of get cold after like sort of 10 minutes or so. It just won't happen. It won't. In fact, if you switch over to the gas and leave it 10 minutes, nothing will happen. Because they do take a few hours at the very least to cool down. So I just thought I'd let you know that, just so you know. A few more bits and pieces under here. Not really. Your external gas point is that little brass pipe just there, or copper, whichever one. You might have a few gas isolators under here. Possibly, yep. So you've got a few isolators at the back there, and your water pump is that bit just at the back. You've also got this switch just down here, which you probably can't see what it says, but it says oven on it. So that's not actually your oven that it's talking about. It's talking about this hot ring at the top. So basically, if you had a hookup plugged into the van, you do have access to using a hot plate to, you know, warm a kettle up or whatever. That's just via this little dial here, which says 1 through to 6. But if you have that switch under there off, that won't work. It's basically an isolator switch for this, just so you know. And so really the last thing is, I don't need to show you how to suck eggs. It's nice and easy. You literally just got, it's like any household cooker. You got an ignition just here, which by the way is for all 3 burners, grill and oven. You don't have any separate ignition, it's all just off this one button. You got a little diagram telling you exactly which dial does what. So you've got your hot plate, bottom left, grill, bottom right, top right, and oven. So you basically, the only thing I need to tell you is that you need to leave this window door open a little bit if you're using the grill. And yeah, that's it. Just literally use whichever one you want to light up whilst pressing the igniter button, and you'll be good to go. Right, I'll switch this fan off now. And so I think the last thing really is the bathroom. Again, not going to show you how to suck eggs because it's nice and simple. It is literally just a case of, you've got shower with hot and cold. You can see there you've got red and blue, so you can literally just choose how much you want it. It's a mixer tap. You've also got this sink one, which is exactly the same as any of the others, so you literally just You know, it's pretty simple stuff. The pump literally just turns itself on and off. You don't have to worry about turning it on and off once you've got that switch on the control panel. Toilet, push this button here for your flush fluid, and like I said to you, that does come straight from your freshwater tank. You see there, so if I show you, it just basically pumps around. And then to drain it out, shut the lid, and then you've got this little drain here. Open, close. So it's really important to close that up, the flap for the toilet cassette, for two reasons. If you don't close it up, you'll get a really bad smell coming into the van, obviously, because you'd just be going straight into your toilet cassette. And also, if it's in the open position, you won't be able to take it out from outside. It's completely locked up. So you need to make sure that it's closed if you want to take it out from outside. So that's that. Okay, so I think the last thing is I'll just show you a couple of bits around the cab. I know that, again, it is all pretty straightforward, but I will just show you anyway, just so that I've done it. So you've got electric adjusting mirrors. So you've basically got two mirrors on each side, top and bottom. So you've got top, bottom on the right hand side, and obviously the same on the other. Basically choose which one you want to move, and then just move this around like a little joystick, and it'll move the mirror wherever you want it to move to. You've also got electric windows. Lights are on the left hand stalk just here, so that's side lights and then main beam. Obviously indicators are on the left as well. Washers and wipers are on the right side. 5-speed manual gearbox. Reverse is lift up on here, over and up to the top left. Same on all the Fiats, Peugeots, Citroens. The heated rear window switch, obviously that won't do anything because the original heated rear window isn't here anymore because it's a motorhome. Front and rear fog lights. I'm not sure which way round. I think this is front, that's rear, but I might be wrong. And your hazard lights. Your heater sort of settings are all down here. So you've got your fan speed, your heater temperature, and your actual fan setting, heater settings itself, so where you actually pump the air to, basically. You've got a single DIN VDO head unit up here, which, to be honest, I haven't personally used, but you know, it's all there if you need to use it. So yeah, I think that's about it, really. So yeah, if you think I've missed anything out or you want anything covering again, then just let us know and we'll get straight on it. But you know, I mean, I've tried to sort of go through everything as best I can. It's difficult to, without sort of just going over and over everything, it's difficult to kind of make it all really, really clear. But I hope it makes sense. But the basic bits and pieces are 100% leave this water heater switch off if you're not using it. Because if you put a hook up into the van and leave that on by accident, you're in, you know, a world of trouble, really. The heater switch, don't worry so much about it, but that basically just turns, if you turn that on, you'll have access to using your ultra heat switch up here, which is your 240 volt heating. Ultra store on the right hand side here is your boiler on gas. Make sure that you have the fridge cold first before you switch it over to the 12 volt. And make sure that you drain your boiler out if you're not going to be using it in over winter. That's more so what it is. I mean, it's not so much for, if you're going to be leaving it for one night and you know it's going to be quite cold, it's not really going to, you know, you're going to be okay. But if you're going to leave it for an entire winter, then just absolutely 100% make sure you drain it out. If you feel like you can drain it out every time you're not going to be using it and it's going to get really cold, and then fill it up again afterwards, then fine, you know, do that. The more you can drain it out when it's going to get too cold, the better. But you know, just don't panic about it too much. But there you go. So when you're leaving the van, make sure that all your lights and bits and pieces are off from there, and then just turn these buttons off like that. So once you've done that, basically everything 12 volt is then turned off. Put that back there. From there, you basically go around and just double check that all the windows are completely shut down. Skylights, really important because they do just fly off. Honestly, I've seen it. 100% definitely make sure that your gas is switched off before you've gone, and that you've shut your door down. If you are going to be using your fridge, you want to make sure that you've turned it over to the 12-volt symbol there before you start driving. And yeah, that's about it really. So yeah, I think I've covered everything I can. If there's anything you think I've missed out, just let us know, and we'll do our best to sort of, cover it for you. But if not, we look forward to seeing you soon to collect your van. Thanks very much.